Well, hello again. I think I'm on, sixth ticket of this season. And Entertainment Weekly provided a first, press photo reveal of the new suit for the new Power Rangers movie for next year. I shall give you a look as to see what you're going to be looking at. Got all that? Peachy. Now, let's talk a few seconds. Number one, I'm glad that they've moved up to something that looks like it actually has power and something not akin to the campy look that the 1990s first season did. Although, to be fair, the look that show and the suits respectively had, that's just a product of its time, and a sign of the times. Only going based upon what Jason David Frank has said in interviews and over time is that Saban is quite cheap in regards to things like that. He doesn't like to spend a lot of money on it, and from what I understood from actors that had actually worked on the show, they only got something like $500 an episode. When you consider the enormous popularity of that show when it first started, I mean, Power Rangers 93 to the late 90s, when it started to dwindle, Power Rangers was a global phenomenon. There was not one kid on the face of the planet that didn't know Power Rangers, but you will get kids, people in Japan that knew it as Sentai, which is what Power Rangers is adapted from, and Power Rangers specifically is adapted from Zyuranger, and they already knew what it was because they already had their own thing. But on to the subject of what I'm looking at. I look at this and it speaks to it screams too much of Iron Man. I don't know how certain specifics are going to work with this. First off, the cast are virtually unheard of, so that's a good starting point. The fact that they can actually mold these roles into their own and not be compared with anything. So there's not that much pressure on them because it's been 23 years since the first season of Power Rangers has been and gone. The likes of Amy Jo Johnson, David Yost, Walter Jones, Austin St. John, and Twee Trang? Comment section, let me know. I mean, she unfortunately, was killed in a car crash in 2001. Sad loss, major sad loss, because I really adored her portrayal of Trini in the show. She was always like the level-headed common sense of the group. So, like I say, it's almost been 25 years. Enough time has passed so that, kids of today or teenagers of today, they don't really have anything to compare that with. So to come back in afresh with a new group so that they can put their own spin on it, it's the right time to do it. The problem I have specifically is, again, as I just mentioned, it screams too much of Iron Man. I can already see the memes popping up. It's like, campy suits, let me fix this. Much better. The only suits and helmets, per se, that tend to be diverse enough, first of all, is the Red Ranger's helmet that looks different enough from the original Tyrannosaurus helmet, but at the same time, it looks new enough but can set itself apart from the rest. The Pink Ranger's helmet looks more or less like the original, but with some additional upgrades from the original 1995 movie. I mean, even the 95 movie, even with the budget they had, it still looks, this movie coming looks better than what they're going with. The Blue Ranger's helmet, the Triceratops calling, it looks good enough. But then I get to the Black Ranger and the Yellow Ranger helmets specifically. Now, presumably we're still going with the notion Red Ranger calls from Tyrannosaurus, the Pink Ranger calls from the Pterodactyl, the Blue Ranger calls from the Triceratops, and the Black Ranger and Yellow Ranger respectively, are going to call from the Mastodon and the Saber-toothed Tiger. Should also be noted, Saber-toothed Tiger, Mastodon, and Pterodactyl were not dinosaurs, and the Mastodon and the Saber-tooth existed in prehistoric Earth millions of years after the dinosaurs had gone out. A little history lesson for you there. The suits, in some aspects, they look a little too generic from one another. If you look at the actual upper torso parts of the male suits, they're basically the same suit but sprayed different colors. Similar thing with the female suits. Same female upper body proportion, but just sprayed a different color. And should also be noted the in-joke that fans of the original series will get. When they would do the American portion of the footage from Power Rangers, it would be Thuy, thank you. Thuy in her Yellow Ranger costume, but then they go to the Sentai footage and the Yellow Ranger was played by a man, because in Super Sentai Zeo Ranger the Yellow Ranger was a guy, and you'd see like this little weird thing where you go from the American footage where you could clearly see that the Yellow Ranger suit had female characteristics in regards to the physics and the proportions, and then all of a sudden you go to the Sentai footage, and and despite the fact it's different footage as well, because you could always tell when you go from one to the next. It's just differences in contrast and lighting and just the way it was shot, and people are like, what? Back then, when you're 9, 10, 11, or whatever age, you don't try to make too much sense of it. Now you look at it and be like, what? So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, because this is obviously going to be geared towards the 15-16 age demographic, in a similar vein to what Summit Entertainment have done with Twilight. Because keep in mind, those movies were done on a very modest budget, particularly with the first movie. So I'm imagining they're going to go for something similar, which would explain why they're going for virtually unknown actors, because then they don't have to pay them such high wages or salaries or fees, call them what you will. But in regards to this, I'm impressed but skeptical. Because like I say, there are some faithful nods. You can still see the diamond chest pieces on the suit, and you can see that the suits actually look as though they exude power and force. I just think what they've gone for is a little bit extreme. I appreciate when you're adapting a medium or media for a new generation, you have to make some subtle changes, because then you may as well, if you're not going to change it, then it's like, well, why are we bothering to do this when we can just give them what was done 25 years ago? But there's making changes, and then there's that. So I don't know. Although from what some fans have pointed out, the morphers that you see on the suits, as I just showed them, it's an Easter egg from Super Sentai. It's actually the same morphers used from that show, which in turn was then incorporated into Power Rangers. When you look at the actual morphers, you actually see, the Dinozord, power coin in the Morpher, and it says Rangers on the bottom. So I like that there's some nice Easter eggs and respectable nods to where it's come from. I'm intrigued to see what the respective Dinozords are going to look like, and word on the wire that's going around is that William Shatner is campaigning to be Zordon. Not sure if that's good or bad. I'm going to just imagine now. Rangers, my name is Zordon. This is Alpha 5. With a little bit of Dwayne Johnson in there. I don't know. I know they're planning to go a little bit darker and a little bit serious, particularly with the press release photo of what Elizabeth Banks is going to look like as Rita Repulsa. In all honesty, she looked closer to what Scorpina looked like within the first 2 seasons, and even then that character and actress respectively was used very sparingly in that show, because there was potential with her. But that's a story unto itself for another time. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do for next year, because at this moment in time, all we've got is the art style that they're going to go with for the suits, the people that they've cast, and that shooting has begun. I mean, you know, that's all we've got to go with. Makes you question what the theme and the score is going to be like. I'd like them to at least have, not necessarily have the same version of the theme from the original, because to put in something with a modern update, I don't think it would work. I mean, the score the theme song in its own right today, you cringe at it a little, but it's still entertaining, and there's something about that guitar riff for the theme. It is something, again, you cringe at it a little because it reminds you of what it's come from, but it's such a great track. We shall see next year. Until next time, signing off from Real Features.